Hi, for this video we're having a look at decals. So decals was added in 2021, SolidEdge 2021, and it was enhanced in SolidEdge 2022. So we're going to have a look at how we can apply decals using both different options. So we've got three different files we're going to use. So we use a little tool, I'm going to pop a little information on there. I'm just going to use a Samsung logo on this one because it's nice bright blue. And then we're going to have a look at popping it in assembly. We're going to pop a little master mover symbol on this nice flat surface here, just keep it simple in the assembly. And then we're going to go back to another part, and then we're going to apply a rim decal on this rim on here. So we're going to do a bit more advanced stuff on there. We're going to have to create something, create like a shape for us to fit that in. Otherwise, it's trying to pop it on a torus, which is impossible for the CAD to be able to figure out what we need to do on there. So if we open up our little tool part, so as I've got it saved, it's 1PLM LRT4. Obviously, I've got it 2022 because I've got it in different versions. So that's just making sure this is the one that's in 2022, so I know it's not backward compatible. So our label tool is in our View tab. So if we go to our View tab, and in our Style section, we've got our little decal option that allows us to go and add a decal label, whatever you want to call it. So when we click on that, we've got two different options. So if we do, if we did planar, we would say if I want to put the decal on this curved surface on here, we would have to go and create a tangent plane, and then it would push it onto the surface, and it would be normal. So if it was wide, it would end up skewing the letters. So it's not going to kind of wrap it as though it was a real label. It's just going to planar project it directly onto the face. That's fine for flat surfaces, but when you've got curved surfaces, it's not ideal for a label. We're going to have it so it wraps onto the surface nicely. So we're going to go and choose the label option and click OK on that. We then got our little command bar at the top, so we can see this, and then we can go and choose the file that we want. So if we go to where our file is saved and go to the labels, and if we can find the Samsung logo, notice these are PNG files which have already got the transparency set up. So when we are using labels, you will have to figure out how to get those to set those up properly. So on there, that is default. We don't need to click anything else. We don't need to choose any transparent color. That will do it automatically because that is built into the PNG portable network graphics. It is the nice Windows style. So if we click OK on there, this little command bar, I'm just going to drag this so it's a little bit easier to see on here. So we've selected our image. Next is we're going to select our decal face. So I want to select this face for our decal to go on. So we've got our decal on there. At this point, we could actually go back and go, actually, it doesn't seem to have done that transparency. So we can go back to this point and just click Use Transparent Color. So if we do make that mistake, we can go and fix that. So then we've got this little button now. So this little decal display step. This switches between two different options. This little bit on the right will switch between the two options. So if I click on that, it will give us the size, the angle, and it will give us mirror options and options to unlock the aspect ratio and reset the aspect ratio, and to turn off the border if we've got a border. And then if we click that again, that will take us back to our offsets. So our offset, these values are actually meters. So something point something meters. But for this one, we're going to go to our decal display step. You notice that the decal is kind of normal to one of the faces. So at the moment, my size is way too big. So I want this to be, so I'm going to go 25, and then I'm going to press the tab button. If I press the enter, it'll finish the decal. So make sure we're using that tab button on there. So that has got that size, so we can see what that is. You can see that is pretty much normal to the x-axis on there. So when we're changing the sizes on the other screen, when we click this, and we go and make these changes, so if I go and change that, you'll see that's moving up or down 10 mil, but that face is only 10 mil, so by doing that 10 mil, you'll see that is going to completely disappear off the face. So we're just going to use the arrows. So that's moving 10 mil round in an anti-clockwise direction, and that's moving 10 mil in a clockwise direction on there. If I wanted to go and offset this a certain amount, I could put 0.00, let's go 2, and I'm pressing the tab key, and that's going to go and move that down to where I want that. I'm actually just going to reset that to 0 because I actually want that on 0. Remember, tab is your kind of temporary enter. And then we're going to go back to our other step. So we're going to click on this button to the left to finish. We don't need to use those unless we made a mistake or any point, and the settings allow us to go and change it to the other decal type that we want, where it kind of projects it on rather than wrap it around the surface. So we're going to go back to our display step, and now we're going to go and spin that round. We could change 180, but if we do a double flip, so if we flip in both directions, that's going to flip that round. So that can be quite a nice little option on there. And now we can go and resize it. Just be aware, depending on the logo's size and shape, when you resize it, it doesn't do auto scale sketch to where it is. It kind of does it from one corner. So just be very careful if you resize it on certain surfaces. It's not going to work quite the way we want it. So if we just see the sizes, so that's kind of nice size. That's kind of like the size as it really is. It's about 40 mil across that part. So something along those lines, 40, 50, somewhere around there. Okay, that doesn't make any difference in this one, but if there was a border on there, certain image types should have that. And then we can go and back to that step, decide what that's going to be called. So I'm just going to rename that so we can see what it's called, and then finish that. And then we've got that item finished. Notice our decals all appear in their own collector at the top here, so we can see that we've got our decal on there, and we've got that decal applied on there, and that will show in drawings for us by default as long as we've got the decal option turned on. So next we're going to our assembly, and we're going to go and put the graphic on this face on here. So we're going to go to our decal tab on here, and we're going to choose the label option. And then when we browse, we're going to be looking for a file MM at the start. So that's our Master Mover logo. It's only a small one, this one. There's no need to use a transparent colour. And we can click OK and select that front face, that front plane that's highlighting on there. Okay, so now we need to switch between these two different environments. We've got our display step, and we've got our offset and width step on here. So when we do our angle, sometimes it does strange stuff because it's going to try and keep our aspect ratio. So it's going to kind of keep the lines the same distance. So I want to turn the aspect ratio off, and I'm going to set that angle to 90 degrees, or let's try 270 to get that back where that wants to go on there. That has actually kind of moved that up out the way over here to the right now. So we can click on there and go and have a look at these different options. I'm actually just going to go and change this back. I'm going to go and change that back to 90. And I'm going to click those two to go and flip that round instead. So now we've got our aspect ratio. It's kind of like the wrong way round. So we need to kind of switch these two values. So we need to make sure the aspect ratio option there on there is off. And I'm going to go and copy that one. Remember that's 60.23, so I'm going to paste that into there and go 60.023 in that. And this image is now up here, so we need to click on this option and we need to go and move that. So these are in meters, so if we go down here, it's going to kind of reduce. We can kind of see this. And as we make these changes, we should see our graphics start to reappear on there. We can also try re-clicking on the face step, so we can actually go and just redefine the face to try and attempt to get our graphic back into the correct orientation that we need. So I'm just going to keep finding these until we see our graphic. So there we go. So that's there, and that's across there. Okay, so I'm going to click back onto here. When we do resize, so this time I'm going to relock that, and I want to make this a little bit wider. So I want this to be about 100 mil wide. That's got the right kind of size. If you find it does disappear, shrink it back down to close to the original size. Allows you to see roughly where that is. And then I switch back on here, move that back on there. If we do that, it's going to go a little bit too far across. So we can go in there and change that manually. So if I go 0.045 and then tab, actually still not quite right. 42, 415. 43. I'll do 25 even. There we go. We can see we've got that position on there. Let's just have a look on there. 0.4 is Let's try 4.8 on there. That looks pretty good. Then we've got our position. Let's just double check. It's looking good. And then we can finish that and then escape out of the command. So we now got our graphic applied on there. Okay, so next we're going to go to our rim. So if we go to our 29 MB 930 carbon rim on here, we want to put a graphic on here, on that face on there. So for this one, I'm actually going to put a Microsoft graphic on because it's quite nice. I quite like the 4 colours that we've got on there. So the first thing we're going to do, if we've got our bar on here, we're going to go to ordered modelling. If we haven't, we're going to right click and go transition to ordered, and that's going to take us into our ordered modelling option. To make sure that we've got a less complex face to apply our graphics to, we're going to go and split the face on there. So if we make sure we're in ordered modelling, go to our sketch tool, and then I want to go and sketch on the plane that's normal to the axis of the rim through the centre. Okay, and then what we want to create like a profile that's kind of like half the thickness of there. So I want to do a couple of holes. So the first one is going to be 280 radius. Okay, and then if we do 300 radius for the next one. And then I want to produce 2 lines, both from the center point on here. So make sure we start in the center. One going up there, another one going up here. Because we're on 2022, if we click on the line and left click on the endpoint, that will give us our little feedback. So I can choose horizontal, vertical between those 2 endpoints. And if I do an angle constraint, we can either use smart dimension and angle, or we can just use the angle constraint on there, and we can get that 45 degrees. If we equal those 2 up, that will be nice and equal for us. Next, we're going to trim those up. So we're going to use the trim command. We're going to trim these 2 elements. We don't need these. We're going to trim these side ones as well, so we're left with just the 4 elements we've got on there. To fully constrain this, if we do a horizontal and vertical between the center point of this line on here down to the origin point of the part, if we do a smart dimension on one of these lines, use the A key to get the arc length, that's going to take that to 45 degrees for us. We can dimension up one of those lines, and that should, as long as we've got our relationship colours on, that should give that fully defined for us. We can then close that sketch. And we can now use that sketch with the tools. So we go to the Surfacing tab and choose the Project Sketch option on here. So we need to select the surface we want to project onto. So, no, not sorry, the sketch that we've just drawn. Accept. And select the surface we want to go onto. So I want to select the torus surface on there. And then accept and left click to confirm the direction we want that to go. We could have chosen that point, we could have done that to both sides at the same time, and that will do that for both sides for us, but in this instance we just want to go in the one direction, finish that, and then we can hide the sketch we've just done. So in my example that was sketch 2. Okay, next we're going to go to our Modify Surfaces section in the Surfacing tab and choose the Split tab. And then we're going to click on that face, accept. And then if we choose chain on there, that will allow us to select their construction curves. So we'll actually need to use single or chain and select those, and that will then split that face into 2 faces. If we turn the projection off on there, you'll see as long as we've got our view setting set to shader with visible edges, we should see our edge on there. So now we've got that, we can go and pop our decal in that little section. So we can choose our label option, same as we've done before. We're going to browse and we're going to go and find our Microsoft logo. Click the transparent option for it to recognize the black as the transparent for us. And then we're going to choose that face to get that logo on there. You can see it's centered that within that face nicely for us. It saved us a lot of hassle on there. Go and switch that mode. Go and do a twin flip, same as we've done before. And the logo is kind of squished on there, so I want to kind of change it a little bit. So I'm going to make it a little bit wider. So I want to go to 150. But then the height, I want to go and change that. So I want to go and turn my aspect ratio off. Remember that's a reset, and that isn't a turn it off. So turn that one off, and then we can go and set that height and go and see what that looks like. So if we set that to 70 or 65, somewhere along those lines, that kind of gives it the right kind of size for us. If we did want to move it, we could go move it in that step, but we don't need to because we split the face to get it in the right kind of option. And then we can escape to come back out of that command. To make that look nice as well, if we change that setting back to our shaded, it's going to hide those edges. And we can now see that we've got that surface. If we go into our sharpness set, you go and up that to 3 or 4. That's going to go and make that look much smoother for us on there as well. Just be aware when you do spin it around, we are going to get a slight graphic error when we move that, but as soon as we stop, it should be pretty good on there. Okay, so those are our different options that we've got. Hopefully that's going to give you a bit of an insight to get used to working with labels in SolidEdge 2022. Thank you.